So good morning, everyone. I'm Jennifer Meisner, and it's my pleasure to welcome all of you to the 17th Annual John D. Spellman Awards for Achievement in Historic Preservation. I really look forward to these awards every year because they give us a reason to pause for a moment and congratulate each other for all the good and important work that's being done all over King County to preserve our heritage. And it also gives us an opportunity to visit one of our many great cities in King County and to gather in one of our really lovely historic buildings. We were so excited to be holding this year's awards in beautiful downtown Kirkland in this charming building, which, as you can see, has been carefully preserved and meticulously maintained by members of the Kirkland Women's Club. The club has made a considerable investment of their own funds into this building, and with additional support from For Culture, they have taken on a number of projects, including completing a building assessment, which really serves as a roadmap for the club as it moves forward with capital projects here, including new paint, window restoration, and most recently a new roof. Thank you to the Kirkland Women's Club for being such devoted stewards of this building, I should say this nearly 100-year-old designated landmark building, and for making it available for our event this morning. Thank you. So those of you who have attended these awards in the past know that they are named for John D. Spellman, who served as the first King County executive from 1969 to 1980, after which he was elected governor of the state of Washington, a position he held from 1981 to 1985. During his term as King County executive, Governor Spellman established the county's historic preservation program. He was instrumental in passing King County's landmarks ordinance and creating the Landmarks Commission. He also initiated the first county-wide survey of historic resources and developed the first comprehensive plan policies related to historic preservation. So as we celebrate accomplishments in historic preservation throughout King County each year, we continue to honor the legacy of John D. Spellman in laying the foundation for our ongoing work to protect King County's heritage. And speaking of protecting our heritage, would all current and former landmarks commissioners stand and be recognized? Thank you. You play such an important role in this often challenging work, and we really thank you for your ongoing service and dedication. So to this year's awards winners and their project partners, we want to thank you for all your hard work and for coming out this morning to celebrate and be recognized. I'd like to acknowledge For Culture, King County's cultural services agency, with whom we are proud to partner and whose funding and expertise contributes to the success of countless preservation projects, a few of which you will hear about in just a moment. To our program sponsors, Kirkland Women's Club, again, thank you so much for welcoming us this morning. The City of Kirkland, especially Angela Ruggieri and Allison Zeich in Kirkland's Planning Department, and the Kirkland Heritage Society, Lynette, Loida, all the volunteers, thank you so much for organizing the lovely reception this morning. And finally, to any elected officials who've joined us, thank you all for your ongoing support for preservation in your own communities. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the Honorable Jay Arnold, who is Kirkland's Deputy Mayor. And Jay is here to say some additional words of welcome.
Thank you, Jennifer, and we're very pleased to have you all in Kirkland for the awards today. We are in the Kirkland Women's Club, built in 1925. It's fitting that we're here. This is Kirkland's first library. And as you came here this morning, I'm sure that you have seen all the construction and cranes in downtown Kirkland and all the change and growth that's going on. And amidst all that, it's so important that we take the time to recognize and celebrate our history. So thank you all for being here today. As we think about our history, there are our friends at the Kirkland Heritage Society. They all have name tags here and would love to talk to you not only about this historic building, but several other historic landmarks around in our work to preserve them. So thank you for being here today. And next we have Jennifer. Are you introducing Christy? Okay, very good.
Thank you, Jay. Thanks. Now I'd like to introduce Christy True. Christy is Director of King County's Department of Natural Resources and Parks, which houses and provides great support to our program, the King County Preservation Program. Thank you for joining us, Christy, to present certificates of designation.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm very excited to tell you about these properties because they're fascinating, and we're going to show some pictures of them, right? We're not just going to have a picture of me up there. Good. That'd make me really nervous. So the first one up is the Enumclaw National Bank. It's located in the heart of Enumclaw's historic 8-block commercial district. It was founded as the People's State Bank. Do people remember People's Bank? Yeah. It was founded in 1910 at a nearby location, and the bank was nationalized in 1922, and it was renamed Enumclaw National Bank, and in 1923 moved into the stately new building that you see there. The bank's new home was designed in the neoclassical style, characterized by sturdy materials, dignified engaged columns, and a heavy cornice. All features intended to signify the bank's financial soundness and stature in the community. Steve's Shoe Service was established in a rear retail space that same year, and when the bank closed during the Great Depression in 1932, Steve moved into the bank's more prominent space, where it remained open for business for the next 60 years. Although the building has been altered, it still conveys its association with the Enumclaw's commercial and building boom of the 1920s and was designated an Enumclaw landmark in October of 2016. With support from King County and for Culture, the owners Peggy and Toby Wenham have recently repaired and repainted the building's exterior, and they hope to complete some additional work on the building soon. Peggy and Toby were not able to join us this morning, but let's give them a big round of applause anyway. All right, moving on to the Stewart Barn. Since 1928, the majestic Stewart Barn has stood as a visual landmark in the Snoqualmie River Valley, commonly known as Cherry Creek Farm for the creek that runs through this 74-acre property. The floodplains of the creek and the nearby Snoqualmie River provided fertile farmland that attracted early settlers to the region, including the property's first owner in the late 1800s, John Selleck. The property was owned by 3 different dairy farming families between 1928 and 1991, and the changes each family introduced to the structures tell the changing history of the dairy industry in the valley. The buildings still display the characteristics that make them unique and important, including the barn's soaring Gothic arch truss roof and large open hayloft. The pasture is preserved under King County's Farmland Preservation Program, and with its designation as a King County landmark in December of 2016, the barn and milk house are all now protected. Wayne, Gulstad, please come up and join us in recognizing it and get your certificate. Did you want to say something?
Sure, yeah. Well, thank you. Just quickly, thanks so much to Todd primarily for helping steward us through the process. It's a little bit complex, but we made it. And just a word about preservation of things like old barns. I can tell you from a farming perspective, unfortunately, that old barn economically doesn't make any sense to us at all. The smart thing to do economically would be knock it down, probably sell the wood to end up in some really high-end home somewhere, and build a steel pole barn. Much more functional, but it's a piece of art sitting on the hill. So for us, it's like, no, we don't want to lose that, but it's probably going to be up like $250,000 to rehab it, and you just can't do it. But for the public good, we can do it with your help, and we can preserve that for 100 years from now. Somebody will be driving by 203 and say, wow, look at that old barn. So thank you.
Thank you. That's a great testimony for why we need to partner and work together to protect these buildings. This goes to Bethlyn and Mark Miller, owners of the mid-century modern William Conradi House, which was designated an Issaquah landmark in February of 2017. This house was built in 1962 by prominent residential developer George Rowley Sr., who between 1956 and 1976 designed and constructed more than 300 homes in subdivisions on the north side of Squaw Mountain. The house was built for William Conradi, and I heard from Bethlyn that he is still with us, who handled, this is a very interesting story, who handled the Atomic Energy Commission account for the General Services Administration. He and his wife chose this location because of the natural protection provided by the mountain in the event of his feared nuclear attack on Port Louis and McCord Air Force Base. He also had a bomb shelter built into the basement, a relatively rare amenity for most houses constructed during this period. Located on a heavily wooded site, the house displays many characteristics of mid-century modern residential design, including rectangular massing, exposed beams, deep eaves, stained wood siding, and large windows and sliding glass doors that integrate interior and exterior spaces. With the growing appreciation for mid-century modern architecture, we're delighted that Bethlyn and Mark nominated their home for our very first mid-century residential landmark. Bethlyn, please come up and
I have to give most of my gratitude to my sister, Sherlyn Wydell, who works in the area of historic preservation. She sat in our living room one Christmas and said, "You know, this is a mid-century modern. You ought to look at designating this." I said, "Well, I don't have a clue how to do that, but I know you do." I said, "If you do the groundwork, I can do the grunt work." And that's what we did. So it's a treasure. She raised our awareness of what we had.
And now it's my pleasure, as always, to introduce King County Executive Dow Constantine. And as everyone in this room should know by now, Dow cares deeply about protecting the places that matter to the people of King County and beyond. Dow knows that landmarking grants and other preservation incentives are really effective tools that help owners preserve and restore their historic properties, which in turn helps protect the character of our communities and promote revitalization. Thank you, Dow, for your ongoing support of the programs and policies that advance this important work. And before I turn the podium over to Dow to present King County's awards, I want to share with you that Dow and Jim Kelly, For Culture's Executive Director, were recently awarded a Historic Seattle Preservation Award for their vision and commitment to supporting arts, heritage, and preservation through the Building for Culture program. This program was financed by early payoff of Kingdom debt and backed by bonds through a portion of King County's lodging tax revenues, and it's providing a $28 million investment in King County's cultural infrastructure, including several millions of dollars in grants to 34 different historic property rehabilitation projects around the county. So it's really no doubt that this incredible investment of public funds will serve as a catalyst for additional private investment in the arts and cultural community in the months and years to come. So congratulations again to Dow and Jim for this well-deserved honor. And Dow, now please come up and present King County's awards.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, and good morning, everyone. Good morning. I am a preservation buff. I'm a fan of preservation. I actually met Jennifer working together on the Washington Trust for Historic Preservation, and have spent a lot of time, not just through these programs like Building for Culture, but fussing over very specific buildings that I had a very specific love for that were threatened, and that some of which we've managed to save around the county. And that's one of the reasons that I moved our Historic Preservation Office into the Department of Natural Resources and Parks. It had been in another agency, which was a very good agency, but an agency that was dedicated to sort of internal services in the county, but I felt that it needed a home and a place where people had an ethic of stewardship, this notion that they were going to pass this place on better than they found it, that they were going to take these resources and restore them and make sure that future generations could enjoy them. And I think, although it's not a wooded hillside, and it's not a sewage treatment facility, and it's all the other things that Christie does, it fit well into the ethic of the department, and that's why I wanted preservation to be there, and I think it's been a very, very good fit. And it is wonderful to be here in Kirkland, in particular, to present the 17th annual John D. Spellman Historic Preservation Awards. We're grateful to you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, for welcoming us today. I want to thank City Manager Kurt Triplett, who, like me and John Spellman, was also King County Executive. So thank you, Kurt, for being here. And each community is doing what it can to preserve its historic buildings that make their places unique. Kirkland, like many other communities, is experiencing exponential growth, and with that comes opportunities, but also challenges to some of the things that we cherish. Kirkland really has done more than most to help preserve its heritage and to have the buildings tell the story of the evolution of this community. For those of you who don't know, and I assume if you went to grade school in Kirkland, you know all these things, but for the rest of us, I will tell you that Kirkland is named for British-born steel tycoon Peter Kirk, who came here in 1880, envisioning the development of an industrial Pittsburgh of the West on Lake Washington. But as a result of the Depression of 1893, Kirk's steel mill closed before it produced any actual steel. Despite this minor setback, Kirkland incorporated in 1905 with a population of 400. Wool milling and shipbuilding were its first two big successful industries. And by 1940, the Lake Washington Shipyard was building ships for the United States Navy. More than 25 warships were built during World War II on what is now Carillon Point. Needless to say, Kirkland has expanded skosh since 1905 and has incorporated the former city of Houghton and the neighborhoods of South Juanita, North and South Rose Hill, Finn Hill, and Totem Lake. And while growth has brought inevitable new construction, the city has been committed to identifying and protecting historic buildings that give Kirkland its unique character and sense of place. Now, partnering with King County nearly 2 decades ago, Kirkland adopted a preservation ordinance and quickly designated its first landmark, Heritage Hall, which the city still owns and maintains. The city has worked with the Kirkland Heritage Society to complete a historic building survey and inventories to identify the most significant historic buildings. The city's historic resources inventory was updated in 2012 and 2013 with additional surveys covering newly annexed areas, and a survey was recently completed that identified the city's most significant, again, mid-century modern buildings. Realizing early on that not every owner would want to designate their buildings as a landmark, the city implemented historic overlay zones with a historic residence ordinance. These tools allow for increased development while helping maintain the character of Kirkland's historic neighborhoods. And the city has always looked for creative ways to preserve its heritage. When the historic Trueblood House was slated to be demolished, the city worked with several potential new owners, preservation advocates, and for culture to find a way to save this important house. It has been moved just a block away from its original site, where in addition to the back of the house, we'll give it a new life in a new location. City planning staff has been instrumental in making all of this happen, particularly Angela Ruggieri and Allison Zeich, with the encouragement of planning director Eric Shields. Their hard work, their innovative approaches, and their perseverance has helped Kirkland maintain much of the historic character that makes this city an attractive place to live and work. So I would like to ask Planning Director Eric Shields and City Manager and Executive Kurt Triplett to please come up and accept the 2017 John D. Spellman Award for Preservation Planning. Congratulations once again to Kirkland, and thank you for setting an example that can be followed by other cities and communities around our region. And thank you for hosting us as well. On to our next award. Most of King County's historic districts are Main Street commercial districts, like the charming downtowns of North Bend or Snoqualmie. But there's also a neat little residential district in Kent, tucked up against the East Hill. The Mill Creek Historic District was established just 3 years ago through a grassroots effort led by the Neighborhood Council. Since that time, the neighborhood group has put great effort into documenting the houses in the district, producing multiple editions of its history book, and installing plaques on many houses. But some homeowners have done even more to restore the neighborhood's historic character. The Barton House was built in 1904 at the corner of East Temperance and Jason Streets. Is Temperance Street extant? That's pretty exciting. Every town should have a Temperance Street. You know. A modest house on a large lot with a commanding view of downtown Kent is home to several families over the years, and during that time, numerous modifications were made. Around 1950, some significant updates were made, including modifying the porch, changing out original windows, and most noticeably, closing in the unusual curved inset window on the second floor. While helping the neighborhood research the history of each house in preparation for the district's landmark nomination, the owner of the Barton House, Stacy Cruzy, realized how significantly it had changed over the years. After the district was designated, a few of the homeowners began exploring grant opportunities with For Culture. Stacy applied for and was awarded a Landmarks Capital Grant to restore the second floor of the home and engaged a talented contractor, Kevin Connolly, to help. Kevin painstakingly rebuilt the curved inset window, meticulously applying wood shingles on the tightly curved wall, and installed rebuilt wood windows that matched the originals. Today, the Barton House is much closer to looking as it did back in 1904, and the project has encouraged other owners to look into the very real possibility of restoring their homes. Even the smallest of restorations can make a huge difference in the character of a neighborhood. And I am pleased to award the 2017 John D. Spellman Award for Excellence in Restoration to Stacy Cruzy. Our third award, Fall City. Fall City has one of the more interesting histories in King County. In the lower Snoqualmie Valley, the river was traversable by water only as far as its confluence with the raging river, now a spot where rafters launch their kayaks. This area became known as the Landing, and in 1869, brothers Edward and George Boehm and James Taylor, not the singer, thought the Landing would be a perfect spot to set up a trading post. They filed claims and became the first settlers of what would later become Fall City. By 1872, the small but growing community had its own post office, and George Boehm was named postmaster. Eventually, King County built a bridge over the river at the north edge of town and improved the road. Suddenly, getting to and from Fall City became a whole lot easier. The Yellowstone Trail and later the Sunset Highway brought plenty of traffic through the sleepy little town, giving rise to the community's tourism industry through hotels and restaurants and gas stations. Fall City is also fortunate to have much of its history documented. Jack and Judy Kelly were instrumental in collecting that history in the 1990s and early 2000s and published Jack's History of Falls City in 2006. While Jack's book was being prepared for publication, the Falls City community shared family histories with Jack, passed many things into his care, and stepped up to help with the publication expenses. Now, at that time, a decision was made to form the Falls City Historical Society. The society was organized under the nonprofit umbrella of the Falls City Community Association in 2006. An office was established in an upstairs room of the Falls City United Methodist Church in 2007, and in 2008, an additional room was added for collections storage. Donated office furnishings, collections supplies, and software catalog to document collections helped the Historical Society get off the ground, and it's been going strong ever since. The Society became an independent nonprofit in September 2008, and a 501c3 nonprofit status was granted in 2009, and since that time, a very active board has embarked on an ambitious program of education, events, and documentation. Every month there is a dedicated page on local history in the Falls City Neighbors newsletter. A reference library is available in the community by appointment at the office, and displays are presented annually at community events. With support from Heritage for Culture, the Society continually works to broaden and strengthen its programming. Each year, the Society produces a calendar with a specific theme. This year's theme is logging, and next year's is hops, and chock full of historic information about the community. You'll often see visitors pausing in front of one of the numerous well-researched and professionally designed interpretive signs the Society has installed throughout the town. The Society has also been the primary steward of the landmark designated 1886 Falls City Hop Shed, located in King County's Falls City Community Park. They've completed a conditions assessment and been instrumental in stabilizing it over the years. Due to the hop shed's fragile condition, it's not possible to open it for public viewing and interpretation, so the Society found a couple of willing volunteers to build a traveling scale model that shows how a hop kiln actually worked. And you will find it right over there. I would like to commend the Falls City Historical Society for its commitment to keeping Falls City's history alive and furthering its mission to share and educate today and carry the past into the future. Would the Society's board members please come up and accept the 2017 John D. Spellman Award for Achievement in Education. And now, our fourth award, Historic Barns. Historic barns are, as we've already discussed today, icons of King County heritage. They are essential elements of our rural landscapes, conveying both a sense of place and traditional building methods. However, changes in farming technology and the high cost of maintaining these sizable structures has made it increasingly challenging for property owners to preserve them. As a result, many of these cherished community landmarks are threatened, which is why in 2016 we were thrilled to relaunch King County's Barn Again Historic Barn Preservation Program. This is something we began, Councilmember Lambert, who represents the northeast part of the county, and I, when I was on the county council, I was chairing the budget committee. Kurt, you'll remember this. We got very excited about creating a space where we could restore these magnificent structures and help landowners, help farm owners who wanted to save these buildings but were just finding it too financially difficult to do. And I think it's been a wonderful success story. Barn Again provides grants to help property owners stabilize and rehabilitate their historic barns and sustain King County's farm economy by extending the life of working farms. After returning home from college, our hardworking and enterprising final award recipient wasted no time in making sure the historic barn that had been in her family for 40 years will be around for another 40 and then some. So, Todd, cue the video.
the historic Crest Barn. It's been a fixture in Carnation since 1910. You'll even find historic wagons. It's now home to a team of draft horses that are fixtures in the local community. The Keller family bought the farm in the 1970s.
Family's been in agriculture for, I'm 5th generation.
They've repaired it over the years, but unfortunately time and weather had taken a toll.
Over the years, farming changes and old buildings like this get, the doors closed. So it waited 30 years, and then after college I picked it up and I was like, all right, I'm gonna restore it.
But that would not be easy or cheap. The foundation was cracked and failing.
Before, it was in like 6 or 7 different slabs, and the slabs were falling out in each direction. The corner walls were falling out, and the barn was mushrooming out with it.
So Diane applied for a grant from King County's Barn Again program.
We cover projects that really help prolong the working lives of these barns. So new roofs, new foundations, paint, siding, anything that really helps keep them in useful purpose.
The Kellers used the grant to lift the barn with jacks and install a new foundation.
So when they lifted it, the builder said, yeah, in 10 years it would not have been possible to lift it because of the south side was, falling out so badly.
The project has brought new life into this old barn.
It's made all the difference in the world because, we can use it now. We could replace the siding. We can do all these little things we couldn't have done before. Yeah, we couldn't slide things around because it was so cracked, and now we can roll the wagons in and out.
So all of these barns have stories, and some of them are very unusual and very unique, so I don't want to see any of them leave. And as I drive by and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this one's listing, 15 degrees, and this one's listing 50 degrees, and, pretty soon they're not here anymore.
But the Hillcrest Barn will be here.
When you see the horses out in parades or at the pumpkin patches, you can tell people are getting that first-hand connection with agriculture through the horses and the history of the wagons. And it all comes back to, where the horses live, where the wagons live, and that is this barn, because it is a landmark. There's not going to be any more of these barns.
To find out more, visit kingcounty.gov/barnagain.
Wonderful. And as you can see, caring for her family's barn is a labor of love for Diana, who, by the way, contributed a 1-to-1 match for the $35,000 grant. She was awarded in 2016 for that work to lift the barn and install a new foundation floor slab. Diana was the first of 9 grant recipients to actually complete the grant project, and then she rested on her laurels? No, she did not stop there. She wasted no time in applying for a second Barn Again grant earlier this year. This grant enabled her to replace rotten or missing siding using salvaged materials from another barn. And that is work she did herself with the help of Wayne Buckner, who boards the Belgian draft horses you saw in the video. They also repainted it a glorious, vibrant barn red. I've heard that restoring the cupola is next on Diana's project list, so don't be surprised if you see her back up on the roof one day very soon. Diana Keller, we want to thank you for your tremendous effort to preserve this incredible community asset, an important part of King County's rural heritage. Will you please come up and accept the 2017 John D. Spellman Award for Rehabilitation of the Hillcrest Barn. So, because we are doing well on time, I mean, I can't speak for each one of you. You won't be offended if you leave. But I wanted to ask if each of our 4 award recipients would like to just say a few words about their project and what it means to them and to their community. And so, if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Deputy Mayor or Mr. City Manager, if you could say a few words about the work that the City of Kirkland has done. Yeah, he's going to make you do it because you're the employee. Go ahead. So this gives, Kurt's used to having to speak on the fly. This gives the rest of you a moment to think about it.
Well, thank you, Mr. Executive. It is so wonderful to have all you here, and I know I am just humbled and moved by the extraordinary work of these other award recipients. It's amazing what you're all doing, and I just want to thank you on behalf of the residents in the cities as well as the residents in the rural areas. I'm very lucky. I've been the city manager for 7 years, and I get to help rest on the laurels with the extraordinary work of the team. The thing you saw in like the Trueblood House was truly a labor of love for over 1.5 years of 2 of our planners, Angela and Allison, working with an extraordinary planning director who empowers them to do these things. So they kept coming to us with things like code changes. Can we do this? Can we look the other way? Can we hold our nose? Can we not read that section? And we made something amazing happen. And I think it's those 1,000 little actions that all of us take that preserve this heritage. And to see all of these other recipients doing it, it's amazing. To see someone like County Executive Constantine put support behind it. It truly takes a village to save these old houses. We're so happy to be part of it, and I just love the enthusiasm of our team. I'm very grateful for them, the leadership we get from our council, and for all of the work that all of you do. So thank you for being here, and thank you for making our history live.
Thanks, Kurt. So it does take a village to preserve one of these buildings. It also takes a village to preserve a village. And the Mill Creek Historic District in Kent, you heard about earlier. Would Stacy Cruzy or friends of the Mill Creek Historic District like to come up and say a couple of words about your project? No pressure.
No pressure at all. Well, I'm Stacy Cruzy. Sharon Brisas is coming up with me. We're both in the neighborhood and have been on the council or are currently on the council. And he's absolutely right. It does take a village. We didn't know that we had such a great asset in our community until we started digging deeper at the archives, which Sharon did mostly. But you know, it took many times of looking at our old photos of going, oh, this is what's changed and this is what's different, and then becoming a historic district, going, oh, I can apply for grants? Wait, I like the way my house used to look. I don't so much like the way it looks now. Can I go back? That would be great. So I was able to do that, and I just love the way my house looks now and how much character it has versus where it used to look just flat and plain. And Sharon, you have any?
Well, I don't really, I think Stacy's done a great job, and she's the first one in the neighborhood. I know we have another person who's written some grants, but they haven't received them yet. So we're gonna work with them. And I think Stacy is a great spokesperson for the grant program and for historic preservation of what people can do in their neighborhood to improve it.
So would a representative of the Falls City Historical Society like to come up and just tell us a little bit more about your work, and also explain your model hop shed that we're going to all go over and take a look at as soon as the ceremony's over?
Should I hold this and just leave it? So you did a great job with the slideshow, sort of talking about the association. We are a youngster in the wonderfully large family of King County Historical Societies. And we are so grateful to have been born in King County. You know, there is just wonderful support here for historical work. And we're also glad to be in Kathy Lambert's council district, because she is such an advocate for unincorporated areas. So we feel really lucky about that. As was said, our godfather, Jack Kelly, published his 520-page book in 2006. And I was able to work with him some on that. And during that period, before he published it, it was a 2 or 3 year period, there was such interest and such enthusiasm and such involvement in Falls City that we thought, wow, you know, we've got to have a local group to keep this going. So we did that, and the first thing we chose to do, inspired by the Issaquah Historical Society, was to do a memory book preserving the stories of Falls City. Jack Kelly, bless his heart, is an engineer. So his book is so well organized. It's just a pleasure. And it has, you know, stories and anecdotes also about his growing up in Falls City, but he's got the middle initials and the block and the lot numbers and, you know, all the engineering stuff in there, which is great. And so the memory book was a collection of family stories and also people's personal stories of growing up in Falls City. So those who are just a wonderful complement to each other. So we are always trying to figure out, you know, ways to keep Falls City history interesting to people. And we're pretty excited about our historical sign project. That's our most recent one. It really is fun and interesting, and on each one of the signs, you'll see if you look at the display back there, there's one good-sized old photo, and then there's a reasonable amount of background text, but at the bottom, there's a QR code. So if you really want to know more about that site, you can go to an extensive report with lots more photos and other good stuff on it. So we're enjoying those. We've got several more years of historic signs to go, I think. We have 2 large 20 by 30 inch ones on schools. There's one block in Falls City that was the school block for 15 or 20 years. So we have one there, and we have one that's just arrived that's going to be installed over by Falls City Elementary on the brick school, 3-story brick school that served Falls City for 60 years. So we're really enjoying it. It's good work. Thank you, too.
Thank you for all your hard work. I really appreciate it. And I know we already heard from you in the video, so you might be all talked out, but Diana Keller, would you be willing to come up and add a little bit more? Please?
So, as you guys saw, my beautiful 107-year-old New England barn has been in my family since the 70s. The much-needed stabilizing, repair, and paint will bring many more serviceable years. I am so very grateful for the Historical Society and my team at home for helping me restore it. It is truly a stunning and cherished asset in the Snoqualmie Valley. Thank you.
Are you next? So thanks to all of our awardees and to everyone in King County who is putting their shoulder to the wheel to, in these tumultuous and rapidly changing times, help us preserve and restore some of what we all cherish. Thank you so much.
And that concludes our awards for this year. And again, we really appreciate everyone coming out each year for these. It's such a fun event for all of us. We appreciate Dow doing them with us. And we look forward to seeing you all next year. And I'm sure we'll see a lot of you before then. Thank you.